Guys, it's Damien from Marketing Food Online. So you have a food product that you want to have made for you. So you may or may not have seen some of our videos on co-packers and private label companies, but when is the right time to actually approach one of those businesses to produce your product for you? So that's what I'm going to get into right now. All right, it's Damien. As I mentioned in the introduction, I'm going to cover a few tips and tricks on when you should actually approach a co-packer or private label company to make your product for you. It is not always the best thing to do when you first start out, and I'm going to get into that in my video here. And before we do, if you are not subscribed, definitely hit that little red button down in the corner. Subscribe to my channel. I've got over 400 videos to show you how to bring your food product to retail stores or sell it online. I've been doing this now for a little over 11 years, and I've been in the food business for about 30 years. So before you do all that, definitely take advantage of the subscription and get all of that free information as well. So let's hop right into it. This is actually a question that I get quite frequently from, I think I've been about a dozen of my clients over the past couple of months have asked me this. When I've done my phone consultations with them, they've asked, when is a good time to have a company manufacture our product for us? Now, co-packers and private label companies are actually companies, if you're not familiar, they are companies that do the production end of your product for you. And of course, you do pay for that service. But when you want to scale your food business and you want to have thousands of your bags or thousands of cans or whatever it is that you're producing done over a certain period of time, they actually are the company to do it for you. Okay, so sorry about that. So as I mentioned, a couple of my clients had asked me that on the phone, and I thought it was a great question. So I wanted to do a video about it because there's kind of a small misunderstanding about like when is the time frame, when is the time right to approach one of those companies to do the stuff for you. So number one, you really need to have a product, and I know this may sound kind of trivial, may sound kind of silly to say, but a lot of times you have a recipe. And many of my clients that I've discussed the idea with are not just at that stage just yet of a product, actually a package, a labeled nutritional analysis. Have they even have sales? Are they in stores yet? All of these factors are things that really need to take place before you even step foot approaching the idea of having a co-packer or private label company do it for you. So the reason being is that if you've got a recipe but you haven't finalized your packaging, you can't have a co-packer package a recipe for you. You really need to approach them with everything completed and done and set, so they can basically bring together the ingredients, the bag or the container, whatever it may be packaged in, and then begin to produce it for you. Kind of a misconception, co-packers and private label companies are not in the business to help you finalize your product in a sense. They're really in the business to bring together everything in your final packaging. The other reason why you want to be either in stores or maybe be online or have at least, I personally would say 8 months to a year's worth of sales history before you approach them is because you yourself are taking a big financial investment by putting out the money up front to have it packaged and produced. And then if you don't have an outlet to sell it to, then what are you going to do with it? If you're online, and let's say you're selling products through eBay or your website, or you have a warehouse, or you have like a facility like ours, and you want to produce the product and then warehouse it and sell it, but you've already begun to sell it and you've got kind of about a 8 month to a year's worth of sales history, you know that buying 1,000 units or pre-purchasing 10,000 containers of your product are going to make sense for you, okay? Because you also need to judge based on that type of sales history, how much exactly do you need that producer to make for you? Now, if you're obviously nationwide, you're in, let's say, Kroger's or a grocery store from the east to the west coast, that's going to make sense for you to obviously buy a tremendous amount of product or maybe fill an order that somebody has placed with you, okay? It could be a food distributor. It could be directly to a grocery chain, or it could be even through Amazon FBA. Whatever outlet that it is, you want to make sure that you're already up and running and you've got the wheels moving in a sense, and then you can approach a co-packer. Kind of like the worst time to ever approach one would be obviously in the beginning stages, because many co-packers will ask you, hey, that sounds great. Send us a sample of your product. And then you answer it with, well, I've got a recipe, but I haven't really finalized my product yet. So they're going to say, well, you come back to us when you're all set and done, because we don't necessarily do that. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some co-packers and private label companies that can offer graphic design work. Maybe you need help with a logo, packaging, and product development itself. They do have, some of them have those services available. Of course, you got to pay for that. But keep in mind that you really need to have yourself established, in a sense, in some way, shape, or form before you begin to approach a company to produce this product for you. Now, the one thing that you might want to keep in mind if you're looking to get into retail stores, what I would recommend is that if you can approach a co-packer and you can let them know that you've already contacted some retail stores and you've got interest in your product, okay, you can let them know what's the quantity, how much are these potential orders going to be, and then work with the co-packer to establish that relationship up front. But you don't necessarily have to place an order with them just yet, but you can let them know that they're going to be the company that you prefer to go with, but you have a couple POs that are pending, and those purchase orders from those grocery chains can establish at least a rapport or some type of relationship that you could strike with those co-packers, okay? So having a sales history is a good way to start. It's really going to be very variable depending upon what outlet you're going to go through, okay? So if you're just going to do online sales, maybe you're going to do through Etsy or Amazon or eBay, and you've got a facility, you want to fill it with some stock and you want to have that on hand and then just ship out orders one by one yourself, that is a different scenario than approaching a grocery chain and saying, look, if you want to place an order for 10,000 units, give me a heads up. I've got a co-packer that's doing it for me, et cetera, et cetera. So keep that in mind. As I mentioned, the best time to really do it is after you've got some type of sales history. Establish yourself first and have at least also some cash flow moving. And then from there, you could determine if it's going to make sense for your food product. You got to keep in mind, there's obviously hundreds of thousands of different types of food products, and they all sell different, and they're all produced different ways. So all of those variables really kind of need to be in place before you approach it, because you really are going to end up wasting your time. And most co-packers will not give you kind of like the time of day unless you've got some type of product that's already selling. And then also keep it in perspective from your viewpoint is you don't want to be putting out cash and money into a product that you're going to have 10,000 cases sitting in a warehouse and you haven't even started a website. That doesn't make any sense. Or maybe you're not in a retail store. You just want to sell at farmers markets and such. On that case, I would make it yourself and make just a couple hundred units by yourself and then test the market and see how it is. So I hope that kind of breaks it down for you, let you know when is really the right time and the wrong time to approach these co-packers. And of course, if the video was helpful, do give me a big thumbs up. I've got a couple of videos coming up after this one that's going to break down also when is a good time to get a loan for your small food business. And I'm going to cover some of the do's and the don'ts, especially from what I've learned by making some decisions that could have been made better. So I will cover those.